Hello and welcome to Craft the Draft, second mock draft for 2025. We have 23 selections to make. Bids, compensation picks are in there, as are trades, and there are some big surprises.
There's a big faller, so stay tuned to find out who that is. Like you said, there's some bids to match as well, and there's a great variety of players who were taken. I think from both of us, there was the balance of best available with list needs. So stay tuned to find out who your club takes, and some others who could be in consideration come draft night.
Let's get into it. We are less than a month from the 2025 AFL Draft. How are you feeling?
Yeah, really good. Really excited. Draft season is officially here. All systems go for the AFL industry to the AFL Draft. A great chance for clubs to rejuvenate their list. There's been a lot of talk about the draft this year, the strength of it, and perhaps the weakness of it as well. But there's going to be some teams that are going to rely on it quite heavily to take the next step. I look at a club like West Coast, who's got a couple of picks up the top. Richmond to try and complement what they got last year. Obviously, Essendon are going to be really active in the first round as well. Mock draft time today. Yeah,
second of three that we'll be doing. So if you haven't caught our first one, it was pre-trade period. I think it was about 23 selections all up, and that didn't include some of the kind of maneuvering that we really needed to do with some bids and pick swapping around and stuff. So what this one will do a little differently is we will have trades available on top of having those compo selections locked in now. They were a bit more up in the air because given it was pre-free agency period when we last did one.
Yep. And
then obviously the Academy Father Son bids, all part of it as well. So it's going to look a lot different to what we did last time. On top of that, what this second exercise does as well is maybe allow us to change a couple of picks here and there. We don't want just the same clubs picking the same guys exactly. Because where's the fun in that? If we change one or two little things here, what's the chain reaction like that, especially at the top of the draft? What does that mean for the following 20 picks if something changes at picks 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? So might be a little bit of that in this as well. Do you want to go over the clubs you've got?
Yeah. So I will be responsible for Richmond, which has got picks 3 and 4. Gold Coast as well, who will have the opportunity to match some bids throughout the first round. St Kilda, Carlton, the Western Bulldogs, Fremantle, Adelaide, Brisbane, and Melbourne. Melbourne have got those 2 top 10 picks they got in that Christian Petrarca deal. I'm also responsible for Collingwood. Don't expect them to play any role in the first round, but stranger things have happened, Mitch.
Yeah, and that, I guess, like you said, Melbourne are a newcomer to our mock draft series, really, given they weren't part of it in the first one, and Carlton, to a similar extent, had the Harry Dean bid and had the Silvani compensation, but they don't have that second selection anymore. But they do have 2 top picks, top 11 picks, so that's another change that's certainly come into this. So I've got West Coast, so the first 2 are on the top. Essendon, Hawthorn, Sydney, GWS, Geelong, North Melbourne, and Port Adelaide, a couple of clubs that aren't in the order, but with trades or whatever we kind of want to manufacture from this mock draft, they certainly could be, even though Port Adelaide have said that they're actually probably not taking anyone in this draft at all and just looking at list upgrades. So just to go over the draft order itself, West Coast the first 2 picks, followed by Richmond's next 2, Essendon the 2 after that, and Melbourne the 2 after that to round out the first 8 selections. Carlton at pick 9, Hawthorn at pick 10, Carlton at pick 11 again. Then GWS, West Coast, Western Bulldogs, Gold Coast, then Adelaide, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Geelong, Fremantle, Essendon, Hawthorn, Brisbane.
And that will change as the first round unfolds as well, with some of those bids likely to be absorbed through, or some of those picks rather likely to be absorbed through matching bids.
Yeah, so if we have a certain trade, we haven't done any to the order just yet, but if we have a trade here or there, we'll certainly announce that as it happens. And then with potential bids, we'll have to remove and swallow up some selections for Gold Coast and Brisbane more so than anyone else. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Mitch. You're on the clock.
Pick 1, West Coast. I did say there was going to be some change.
Yeah.
That's not the case here.
I don't think it can be.
West Coast will be taking Willem Dersma with pick 1. I think this is our second official mock draft, but our third kind of look at the first few selections and how they'll play out. And the word pretty much for most of the second half of this year will be Willem Dersma, the first overall pick. And when you talk about the profile of a number 1 selection, he's quite the match, a ready-made player who can play just about anywhere. And for a club like West Coast, they could certainly do with a few options here, there, and there. So Willem Dersma, pick 1. We'll get to our third mock draft think it's the week before the draft,
Yep.
but I don't know if that'll change then. We'll
Yep.
certainly have some understanding at that week. But for now, Willem Dersma once again is our number 1 pick for West Coast.
Number 2.
So this is what the Eagles are going to have to do.
Yeah.
It's going to be funny, see how long they take to make these 2 first selections.
Yeah. Yep.
What will not be funny for Gold Coast is that Zeke Uland is getting a bid at pick 2. So what we'll be able to try and manufacture here is that the Suns have picks 15, 18. They can probably both get swallowed up in that single bid. Now, they would get another selection back.
Yep.
It probably doesn't fall into the first round here. So obviously all part of it is they'll get later selections. And if another bid, which we probably assume is coming for Dill Patterson, comes through, it's not going to change this order anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But what it will do is, I guess it'll change the later rounds. And for our third mock draft, we will be doing the second round of the draft as well as the first. So I'm going to get rid of picks 15 and 18. So they are gone from the draft order. And Zeke Uland is officially a Gold Coast player at pick 2.
Yep.
West Coast, busy once again. Pick 3, they'll be selecting a player that they will be taking, and it will be Sullivan Roby.
Yep.
So he went to Richmond with their second selection. I think it was in our first mock draft. Ended up being about pick 6 or 7 from memory, just due to a couple bids early. And this kind of caps off a stellar rise for the Eastern Rangers live wire, who we will have on Craft the Draft and on Zero Hangers YouTube channel coming very shortly, by the way. A nice chat with the Eastern Ranger star. But yeah, this is, the midfield has been the big question for West Coast's build, and who is that next generation of midfielders? And I think they've got Harley Reid, Elijah Hewitt, scope for Rube and Jimmy, but if it's not him, it's maybe Brady Hoff.
Yep. Big Brady Hoff fan.
Yeah. So Roby isn't going to be an out-and-out midfielder, but he's certainly a player who can, complement that group and offer some spark in the front half, which is always nice to see.
Yeah, inject energy into the midfield. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think from my point of view, I reckon if West Coast are to bid on one Gold Coast player, you'd bid on both of them to try and really force
Good point. Yep.
Gold Coast to match and actually try and prize one of those 2 players out of the Gold Coast Academy. But you've bidded on Zeke Uland with pick number 2. Sullivan Roby's a good fit. Dyson Sharp and Cooper Duff Tytler, naturally, given, I suppose, where they sit in this draft order this year, have been linked to West Coast as well. Dyson Sharp would sturdy them up in the midfield, but ultimately Dersma and Roby are the 2 that end up at Gold Coast. Richmond, so I'm on the clock now with pick number 4 at Richmond, and I'm putting a bid on for Dylan Patterson.
There we go.
And the Suns are going to match that bid.
Yeah, like we said, the picks that they had in the first round have already been swallowed up. They would have got something back, I think, for the Uland match bid. I'll have to kind of do the maths, but it won't change the order for this draft, as we mentioned, for the Uland one.
And they definitely do. They definitely have done the maths to ensure that they have the required points to match bids. It will just potentially affect them if there is a bid on Bo Adensel, Kobe Coulson, John Murray, etc. So now with Richmond's first selection, with that bid being matched, I will be taking Xavier Taylor from the Eastern Rangers.
Okay, I'm going to just...
The intercept defender, best on obviously in the Coates League Grand Final and has been a big riser through the 2025 Coates League season. I think he offers them... I think he's arguably probably the next best available on the board. You've got Cooper Duff Tytler in the mix as well as Dyson Sharp. But I think Xavier Taylor's one that they would certainly look at. And then with pick 6, I'd go Sam Grill. I think he just complements what they need quite well. Obviously, they've brought in some big bodies in the last year with Sam Lawler and Josh Smiley. Mitch, I think Sam Grill's pace, his flashiness, his ability to be quite damaging on the outside complements that inside grunt. So Richmond, Xavier Taylor and Sam Grill are the 2 players that they'll take.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, there's going to be a couple of changes. Obviously Gold Coast still come away with Zeke Uland and Dill Patterson from our first mock draft, but Grill and Dersma are the only 2 that have gone to the same club from those first West Coast and Richmond selections. And Essendon are on the clock, which is now pick 7.
Yep.
They'll put a bid in for Dan Annable.
Yep.
So Brisbane's star talent out of their academy once more. top 10 prospect who would join the reigning premiers a year after they picked up Levi Ashcroft and Sam Marshall in the first night of the draft. So Dan Annable and obviously Essendon known for putting in bids when they have a chance to. Pardon me. So Annable, and you know what? If I'm Essendon, why not go again?
No, absolutely.
Harry Dean will be the next selection. So sorry, Bombers fans, you are having to wait until I guess what'll be pick 9 for your first selection, but Carlton's father's son, Harry Dean. So this is where the maths will come in. If you just want to kind of speak on maybe Harry Dean, I'll get some calculating done on what that means for Carlton's 9th and 11th selections. So those 2 picks have actually now pushed out to, what are we looking at here, 9, 10, 11, 12. So is that 13 and 15?
Yep.
So a bid at, I've also got to figure out what pick route.
So
pick
Harry
8.
Dean's obviously the marking defender, the consensus best defender from a tall point of view in this draft class, and Carlton's 2 first round picks are positioned interestingly given where the bid is likely to come. For Harry Dean, you're doing the maths on that, Mitch, but they've also got Jack Ison, who they needed to be privy of through the trade period and entering the draft as well, that a bid for him is likely to come late 20s, early 30s. A very good talent and really shot up the board in the second half of the season. So not only will they want to ensure they've got the points to match a bid for Harry Dean, but also ensure that they can get Jack Ison onto their books as well. And they've got Cody Walker coming next year. I did consider some trades from a Carlton point of view, in charge of Carlton, obviously, for this mock draft. But ultimately, with the need to have sufficient points to match for both Dean and also Jack Ison, we have retained Carlton at picks 13 and 15. Mitch, you've been doing some maths.
Yes. So what's happened here is the Blues need 90% of 1,443 points. They do get that 10% discount for a bid this early, and a pick 8, 443 points is the starting price. They get that 10% discount. They then use pick 13, which is 1,080 points. That leaves them with 218.7 points remaining. And then with pick 15, that's a further 973 points, which puts them up 54 points, I should say, which gives them pick 21. So they do get a later selection back. You don't just lose those 2 picks for one player. They do get a later selection back. So the Blues will return to the first round of this draft with pick 21. And obviously any clubs after that selection will have to shuffle down a couple of spots.
What's Essendon doing?
It's a good question. We should probably get to that now that they've got some clear air. I'll be taking North Adelaide's Sam Cumming with the first of Essendon's 2 selections, a prospect who went to the Bombers in our first mock draft. Nice mid-forward option. You actually put a piece up on Sam today on zerohanger.com. I think there's some comments from his coach, Mitch Clisby, in there as well. But
some comments from his captain, Blake Woodshon Benny as well.
Plenty of praise for Sam Cumming and the type of player he can be in the top flight.
I think he's just that perfect fit for Essendon. I think there's few players who suit a club as perfectly as what Sam Cumming does for Essendon.
And the next selection, I'll be taking Dyson Sharp.
Makes sense.
It's going to probably be interesting for Essendon fans who maybe aren't too attached to the draft, or maybe those that are and they're thinking 2 maybe midfield options for a club that's already kind of worked through midfield. They certainly didn't shy away from pursuing midfielders in the trade period. And I certainly think that at this point of the draft, it's not necessarily list needs. It can be best available. But Sam Cumming and Dyson Sharp is the pairing that the Bombers will be taking with their first 2 picks. Both out of South Australia. Dyson Sharp, the Lark medal winner, and a ready-made talent who can slot into a midfield unit that might undergo some further change over the next couple of years. They just lost Ben Hobbs, a first-round pick, and obviously it's been a tough period of drafting for them when you go back to 2020. So, couple of nice pieces, both of which could be playing round 1 next year. Sharp has grown his game away from just being a midfielder, which, when we speak about Hobbs, was probably one area that was difficult for a player of his position. And then Sam Cumming as well can also be positioned forward. So they are Essendon's 2 selections, and they come in at 9 and 10 overall, I believe. And you are now on the clock.
Melbourne
pick
is
11
on the clock. Pick 11. So Yeah, they've got some interesting things to work through, Melbourne. Obviously, they've been quite active at the draft in recent years. They're undergoing some change, obviously a new coach and a new coaching panel as well. I think it'll be a year 2026 to promote the youth for Melbourne, and I think a player that will come in for them in this draft that suits them quite nicely is Aiden Schubert. You wanted Aiden Schubert.
There was some planning for a couple of clubs, and even a potential trade if he was on offer, which we might touch on post.
Yeah, and we will touch on some players that potentially on the board and have been the fallers or the risers. But yeah, I think Aiden Schubert, Melbourne needs some front half, probably front half force, I guess you'd call it, some marking targets forward of the footy. And I think Aiden Schubert is the consensus best key position forward in this draft class. So he's the one that I have selected, and then with their next selection, Melbourne have taken Yevon Filippo.
There we go. It's a nice, it's a nice one too, and I think that is 4 South Australians in a row.
Yes, it is. Yep. So they're the players that I've selected. There's one player here that's really fallen, Mitch.
I might have to look into that because I am kind of maneuvering some other things here, there, and everywhere. There is. Yes.
And it will come down to, and I guess it's something we touch on a little bit later. But yeah, Yevon Filippo, I think he's one that, you want a bit of pace in the midfield from a Melbourne point of view. I think he offers just that to complement someone like a Harvey Langford for the next generation, who's probably that bigger bodied brute. You have Yevon Filippo alongside him, who's a great competitor himself, but he's probably more known for what he's able to do in transition.
Yeah, you alluded to who might have slid this far. Essendon certainly considered, and would be a very good chance to go to the Bombers had it not been, obviously if he goes past Richmond.
Yeah.
But this is probably where it does get a little interesting, because I'm going to put in a trade. Hawthorn are at pick 13.
Yep.
They find themselves in the draft with pick 13, and I think what is now 24.
Yep.
With how the draft order is kind of shuffled out. But they're going to send those 2 picks to North Melbourne for their future first.
Yeah.
There would be a lot of little pieces here and there. I don't think I have to put up a whole package.
Yeah.
But what North Melbourne would do is trade into a draft that gets them Cooper Duff Tytler.
Yeah.
At a later point of the draft than what many would actually think, and probably what we thought coming into it.
Yeah.
But obviously that's the kind of fun of me not knowing who you're selecting.
Yeah.
And you not knowing who I am selecting. So there you go. North Melbourne trade with Hawthorn, send their future first. They get into this draft after they traded their selection out to Richmond.
Probably suits Hawthorn as well with the assets they're wanting to bring in.
Well, that's the whole point. Yeah, they traded into this draft without the intention of wanting to actually be part of the draft. In saying that, a club doesn't do that trade without knowing that there's a chance the Zach Merritt deal doesn't get done.
Yeah.
And that they are left with these assets.
Yeah.
So, it's a funny kind of outcome now that you look at it, but North Melbourne I think will be quite happy with a highly rated forward ruckman in a position that they need. A bit of a longer term plan for Cooper Duff Tytler, but there's absolutely no discounting the chance of him playing AFL football next year. So that's Hawthorn at, I think it's 13 overall now, and we roll into I think GWS would be next on the list. I'll probably just have to look at the draft order. So it would have been Hawthorn, Carlton selection, got swallowed up in that bid for Harry Dean. So now it is GWS on the clock. And let's just have a look-see-loo here. So that is me again. Got some options here. There is a bit left over. It is funny when I kind of do all my club-by-club breakdowns, and then there's some interesting names that are left over that maybe you thought weren't. And
100%.
I actually might need a little bit of time on the clock.
No, that's all good.
Oh, there is probably a good option here for the Giants, and
we know the Giants do tend to be a little bit atypical or look a little bit left field with their selections.
Yep. I will be taking Josh Lindsay out of the Geelong Falcons.
Yep.
I think some halfback polish would be quite nice. Lockie Whitfield, well into his career. Lockie Ash is going to be that man for them down back.
Yeah.
But is there another little more attacking, can offset some pressure with some nice kicking out of the back half? They got Harry Oliver last year as a first round pick, but he can be more of that lockdown, dependable, accountable backline option, and Josh Lindsay will be the Giants' selection with what ends up being pick 14 on draft night.
Yep.
I'm up again.
You are.
West Coast. There's a lot of chopping and changing here, isn't there? Pardon me. After taking Willem Dersma and Sullivan Roby earlier in the draft, the Eagles will be taking local talent Jacob Farrow.
Yep. I was hoping he'd still be available. Yep.
Certainly one that got considered much earlier in the draft and also got considered by GWS the pick before. WA's top prospect this year. Probably starts his career as a defender, potentially on the wing. But I think that'll be a nice complementary selection to add to a Dersma and Roby type. Another contested option for them, no doubt. Another player who can roll through midfield and just add to that depth chart without having to be relied on as a starting midfielder for the entirety of his first few games. So that's I think it's a nice kind of third option for the Eagles to cap off night one of the draft.
Yeah, that is a really good option. Like you said, local talent and pick 15, in some ways potentially a little bit of a bargain there, given how highly he has been touted. He was thought about for me a little bit higher. Sounds like he was thought about with some of your teams as well. Western Bulldogs on the clock now. Got a couple of options here. I've got 3 options that I'm looking at from a Western Bulldogs point of view. I'm looking at a tall defender. Do they want someone who's able to lock down one-on-one? We know that's been an area of their game that they've looked to strengthen, haven't been able to do so. Do I look at someone to provide that flair and energy off half back, or do I look at a small forward? Think combine all of that, and the best player available across those 3 positions is probably Lockie Doverston.
Yep.
So
it's a nice fit for them.
Yeah, I think he suits them as that front and centre forward is able to get up to contest as well. We know they've got Cody Waitman who didn't play this year, but Cody Waitman probably more of that, I guess, hit up forward rather than your true crummer. So yeah, Lockie Doverston's the player from a Western Bulldogs perspective that I will be selecting.
Just before you get into the Crows, and maybe while you consider your selection for the Crows, I'll just give a bit of an update on the back end of the draft order now. So with Gold Coast's early bids for Zeke Yuland and Dill Patterson, the 2 first-round selections they had for the second half of night one, are gone.
Yep.
As are Brisbane, who had picks 17 and 23, so they've gone out as well, given they had to match a bid for Dan Annable.
Yep.
So they're, we probably do talk about there might be more than 23 selections. At this point, with the draft order, we can really only rely on at the moment. Those 4 selections will come out. So we do lose those 4 selections while we did have 4 early bids. So that at that point, it stayed at 23 selections in the first round. However, when we do have the Dean bid, so picks 9 and 11, or what ended up being, I think, 13 and 15, swallowed up, and they got the bid at pick 8, and then they got that pick 21 selection, which I think has now come in a little bit to pick 19.
Yeah,
just given how it's kind of fluctuated, so that they'll follow, I think, Geelong in the draft order from where that was at this point. So we've still got Adelaide who are on the clock, then Geelong, Carlton, Fremantle, Essendon, and then Hawthorn to round out the draft so far. Or that Hawthorn pick is actually North Melbourne's, apologies. So we've plenty of change to the draft order than what initially existed, but we're looking at now 22 picks.
Yep.
I think that maths is all mathed correctly, but you are on the clock at Adelaide at pick 17.
Yeah, I am. I came into this recording, Mitch, thinking Adelaide probably want another midfielder, ideally someone who's got that ability to hit the scoreboard in front of the footy. I think the player, in terms of combining best available and combining their list needs that suits them best, who remains on the board, is probably Noah Hibbins-Hargreaves.
Okay.
So he's the one that I'm going to take from an Adelaide point of view.
Yeah.
Obviously, an outside sort of mover, really silky, got the ability to go forward, seizes his moments. So he's the one, and he's certainly not one that I came in thinking Adelaide, Noah Hibbins-Hargreaves, it's a perfect match. But I do think, based on the players that are left, I think that silkiness and that efficiency as well, and that sort of flexibility of skill set suits the Crows quite nicely.
Yeah, so I've now got Geelong on the clock.
Yep.
At, what are we now at? We're at pick 18.
Yep.
It has moved around a little bit at this back end of the draft, hasn't it? It's going to get absolutely bonkers when we do our next mock draft.
Yeah, it
There's
is.
a second round to it, but we'll do what we can on the run. The Cats, this will be quite interesting, actually. There's some nice names.
Yeah.
We're probably looking at best available for the Cats. They do kind of tend to be quite an interesting selector, but they do stick to their guns when it comes to a draft order. And I'd like to think that this guy is probably the number one on their list, and that's Ollie Greaves out of the Eastern Ranges. Big body midfield, 191 centimetres. And, adds to a midfield unit that's undergone a fair bit of change and is now focusing on maybe what that next-gen midfield balance looks like. And how they'll fit him in as a player who can play forward. Maybe not as much as the players he gets compared to, like a Josh Smiley, but certainly can play forward. And like I said, the Cats do like to stick to the order they might have. Pardon me, but if that is Greaves, then they're the one that he is who they take with their first round pick.
Good selection overall, I think. I'm back on the clock, aren't I?
You are. So this is the Carlton selection that they got handed back. Would have been pick 21, I think, with all the maths that we kind of did on the fly. And then it's also come up a little bit with some of the other bids and whatever kind of popped up here and there with what's been swallowed up and moved around. So, pick 19, Carlton.
I think one player they've been linked a lot to throughout the season and even going back to the first half of the season is Lockie Doverston. Lockie Doverston's off the board, but I'm going to stick with the theme of them taking a small forward, Latrell Sumner-Pickett, out of Glenelg. So he's one that could bolt a little bit. I've got Carlton taking him. Great speed, great energy, great X factor, and they probably did lack that front half presence, and they probably lost the player who did provide that for them in the off-season. So I think Latrell Sumner-Pickett comes in and probably fits the age profile of where their list is at now with the Charlie Curnow exit. You think about the fact that Harry Dean, Harry O'Farrell is probably the next generation of defenders. Sam Walsh leads the midfield. They've got some others in there as well, Cooper Lord and Latrell Sumner-Pickett up forward. Hopefully they'll get some other assets in. Obviously, we know Jack Ison will come in and be a different sort of player up forward, but I think he's part of a really good list build for Carlton. So he's the player that I take with pick 19. Pick 20, Fremantle are putting a bid on for Max King.
Oh, there we go. Am I supposed to be Sydney in this? I am. I don't. They'll have the points, you'd assume. So a bid at pick 20 is 757 points. Take 10% off that is 680 roughly, approximately. So their current hand of selections has them over 1,000 points. In saying that, those 31, 32, 42 picks will probably have come up a little bit. And they've probably actually kind of gone back and forth and might be around the early 30s mark anyway. But they'll have the points to do that, and then it'll kind of be interesting from then on after. From bid for Carmichael, Kyle, and Chamberlain, and when they come throughout the night. So a bit of movement there for the Swans to kind of get involved with on draft night, as we've kind of anticipated. Essendon, this will be their third pick of the night. So earlier,
I think I've still got a pick, don't I, Mitch? For Fremantle.
Oh, sorry, you do actually. I've jumped the gun.
No, that's all right.
The Dockers should be taking a pick. Should be taking a pick and not losing it. Go on.
Oscar Taylor out of the Eastern Ranges. So provide a bit of energy off halfback. Really good in terms of his sort of ability one-on-one. Good at ground level, obviously. And his sizzling kicking coming out of the back line, I think suits them quite well between the arcs. So he's the player that I bring in to the Dockers.
Cool. Very nice. Essendon, as I said, certainly considered Duff Tytler earlier as a forward option. Went with coming into Sharp, who is not very clear in this needs, while they have looked at midfielders, but could be in their sights maybe ahead of Duff Tytler. But they still come away with Mitch Marsh at this point in the draft. I think they can be quite happy with as a selection for the Bombers. So that's at pick 22 overall, the penultimate selection of the night, and that was the Sam Draper compensation selection. So they've picked up Mitch Marsh out of West Adelaide, a 191, 92 centimetre forward, who certainly played well above that height, but what he's proven to be is a headache for opposition, given he can mark the ball quite high, but then also when it hits the deck, his follow-up work is fantastic, and he always has something as an advantage over his direct opponent, who are often those kind of key lockdown options. And then rounding out with pick 23, so we've kind of finished with 23 selections for the night, so the same amount as we started, despite all the chaos. This is North Melbourne's selection, so in that trade with Hawthorn. I think the initial draft order has, let me just have a look here, has Brisbane finishing the draft, but obviously that pick got swallowed up in the animal bid. So Hawthorn's pick, which is originally Carlton's, which is now North Melbourne's. And the Roos, let's actually have a look here, because I have a few names, but I do want to just double check if anyone that we didn't have listed for North Melbourne is off the table. Let's have a look here. I've got one name in mind.
I think I know who the name is.
Well, let's have a look here. So just recapping the draft. No, gone. Probably not. Do they want that guy? Maybe. I like him. I'm going to take Harley Barker.
Well, okay.
The South Australia.
Okay,
we'll get to who maybe you thought in a sec, but pure wingman who I think can really complement maybe if they're going to add to that midfield.
Yep.
So obviously they selected Cooper Duff Tyler, got that key forward, maybe locked in. Tristan Sherry's going to be their long-term ruckman, so that the complementary there. There was a key defender I was certainly considering for the Roos, but I know there are concerns around their key back stocks, but I think they have drafted key backs.
Will Dawson being one of them. Yeah. Over
the last few years, obviously Whitlock another that they swooped on last year. So there's options for them here, there, and everywhere down back, key back. And I just thought maybe an outside runner for the midfield. You know, they've got the speed with McKercher and Sheasel, and they've got Finn O'Sullivan as well. But I think someone who they can rely on long term to sit on that wing and just be that outlet option if they need it is a nice complementary piece. So Harley Barker rounds out our mock draft for the first round.
I thought you were going to go with Archie Ludovic for.
Well, I think if the Duff Tyler selection hadn't been made, because there was considerations when I would have only done the North Melbourne trade with Hawthorn if it was a Duff Tyler or Schubert available.
Yeah.
Schubert got taken, but somehow Duff Tyler was the one that was available to them. Yeah. And then with knowing that North Melbourne were going to have a late pick, Ludovic was one in mind. Yeah. But having known that trade was really only going to be made if there was the right type of player available to North at the top. And that having been a key position player, it was probably going to be difficult to think Ludovic as well. Yeah. Don't hate it though. Yeah. Like they really do need some key forwards coming through, and having 2 for 1 and in one draft is a nice kind of get.
Yeah, it is. It would, if that was to materialize, it'd be interesting to watch the parallels or the career trajectories of both Alex Taru, who they were obviously heavily linked with last year and ended up not taking him, and then also the player they do take, Cooper Duff Tyler. In this case, just to touch on Cooper Duff Tyler, heavily considered him for Melbourne. They did bring in Max Heath during the trade period, which made me sort of blink and bring in someone who was more of that pure key forward. Obviously, Aiden Schubert can play as a relieving ruck, but you'd only bring in Cooper Duff Tyler from a Melbourne point of view if you saw him as a forward first. I still see him as a ruck forward, so therefore Melbourne ended up overlooking him, and then obviously got Yevon Filippo as a different type of player. Essendon, the thoughts around him being overlooked for Sam Cumming and Dyson Sharp, both very shrewd selections, Mitch, from a Bombers point of view, and I think they both fit the list profile, but obviously so would have Cooper Duff Tyler.
Yeah, it was kind of like I got to Essendon, I'm like, he's still available. Yep. And I'm just going through my Bombers list, and it was probably like a matter of, I knew having West Coast that he wasn't going to be picked up by West Coast, and there was certainly no guarantee that he goes to Richmond. Yeah. So he'd certainly look at place at West Coast. He'd look at place in one of those Richmond selections, and Essendon too. Yep. I think you can take one of Cumming and Sharp and Duff Tyler, and that's a great haul. The Bombers still come away with Mitch Marsh at the end of the draft. There's no guarantee when you're overlooking Duff Tyler, you're going to get a Schubert or a Marsh or a Ludovic. Yeah. But I think the Bombers could still be happy with that. It was, and then you get to Melbourne, and it's amazing to think that those first 8 selections, that we end up going out to pick 12. Yeah, he doesn't get through there, and then the Hawthorn North Melbourne trade was something I was certainly keeping in mind for the Hawks and who would want to trade into this draft. Particularly for 2 first-round selections, what you have to give up to get that. There probably aren't a lot of suitors. Yeah, given a lot of the clubs that want to be trading probably already have multiple first-round picks in this draft. So it was very few suitors, and I think you kind of hinted similar for Carlton. If they wanted to try and trade picks 9 and 11, who's really going to be able to satisfy them with, maybe it's still future selections, maybe, North Melbourne are 1, but for the Hawks, they definitely, definitely maybe don't want to be part of this draft. And North Melbourne get a prime selection in Cooper Duff-Tyler at pick 13. Let's just go through the order, and then we might talk about some of the near
misses.
So Willem Dersma at pick 1, Zeke Yulland at pick 2 with that bid, Sullivan Roby at pick 3, Dylan Patterson at pick 4 with the bid, Xavier Taylor at 5, and Sam Grill at 6 going to Richmond. Bids for Dan Annable and Harry Dean at 7 and 8, Sam Cumming at 9, Dyson Sharp at 10, those two going to Essendon. Melbourne's 2 selections at 11 and 12 see them get Schubert and Philippou. Pick 13, North Melbourne trading with Hawthorn to get Cooper Duff-Tyler. Pick 14, GWS Josh Lindsay. Pick 15, West Coast Jacob Farrow. Pick 16, Western Bulldogs Lockie Doverston. 17, Adelaide Noah Hibbins Hargreaves. 18, Geelong Ollie Greaves. 19, Carlton Latrell Sumner Pickett. I think that's a great get. Pick 20, Sydney is a matched bid for Max King. That was from Freo, who come away with Oscar Taylor. Pick 22, Essendon Mitch Marsh. And pick 23, North Melbourne, the second selection from that Hawthorn trade, Harley Barker.
In terms of a near miss, and I think it was a near miss on a couple of occasions for you. From what you said, Mitch, Blake Threadgold, I considered him from a Western Bulldogs perspective. I flagged that I considered him in our mock draft a couple of weeks ago from a Sydney Swans perspective. He still hasn't featured in our mock draft, but he's right there and thereabouts as the best openly available 195 plus centimetre defender. Am I right in saying he was a consideration for you from a North Melbourne perspective?
Yes. Yeah, that last selection, I was thinking, it was probably the first name that came to mind. And I'm looking through my list, but I think that Harley Barker was probably the better option of the two. Once again, South Australia featuring quite prominently in our mock draft. I don't know if I probably would have had him at West Coast at pick 15. But he's probably maybe that's probably the ceiling for him. Geelong potentially as well from my picks, and Essendon actually did consider him too. But I think Mitch Marsh is too hard to pass up at that point as well. So he's certainly one. The Schubert selections, the Taylor selections from you probably twisted a few of my plans mostly. I thought Taylor would be a chance to go to the Tigers, but more so the Bombers. The Duff-Tyler one's obviously the big talking point. With how far he's slid in this mock draft. Roby was the big change the first big change from our first mock draft. Sam Grill still goes to the Tigers. Anything else from you that stands out maybe in the first dozen or so selections?
Nothing that overly stands out. I think you've sort of hit the nail on the head in terms of the talking points. I think that Sullivan Roby going as the second openly available player, to recycle that narrative about how big a bolter he's been to end up at pick 3 would be enormous. And probably Jevon Philippou going at pick 12 is a little bit higher than a lot of people would have him. But I think I think when you look at quicker midfielders, your first instinct is Sam Grill. Sam Grill was off the board, so then I took Jevon Philippou to the Melbourne Demons. So that was sort of my thinking there. In terms of the players that I selected, he was probably the one that stuck out as being a little bit jarringly high for, I guess, the casual viewer. And then Noah Hibbins Hargreaves to Adelaide wasn't one I considered until it almost sort of materialised, just because of the types of players that were available.
The guys who were probably just missing out, so we mentioned Blake Threadgold. Archie Ludowic's another. A bid for Lockie Carmichael certainly considered with Essendon's later selection.
And
Adam Saul too, actually.
Adam Saul, and Gold Coast be happy about that. But I certainly considered a bid actually for Kai Fincher from an Adelaide point of view.
Wow.
I talked about wanting a midfielder for Adelaide.
That would make it extremely hard for St Kilda.
That would just about, I think, tie him and lock him into going to Adelaide.
Well, they certainly haven't they've passed up on academy option bids before, so
they did it last year. So that was considered. But here's another one on the precipice in terms of players who are tied to clubs. And then looking at our power rankings that were released earlier this month, some others that are around the mark. Adam Swade could have had a bid put on, Louis Emmett, the Oakley Ruck, and then Matt Leray, Hugo Mukunda, Zach McCarthy, the Collingwood NGA, a couple of others as well.
Yeah, so it looks like out of the top 26, I think, in the power rankings, 23 got picked. The 3 others being Threadgold, Ludowick, and
Sumner Pickett.
And Carmichael. Sumner Pickett getting selected.
Yeah.
So there was, Sumner Pickett being 26th in those
Yep.
rankings. So, yeah, like obviously it's our consensus, and then it's our mock drafts that
Yep.
usually is going to match up pretty
Yeah.
well. But still some nice surprises, which I think
Yep.
is always good to see. Anything before we kind of wrap up?
I think that's about it. Yeah, really interesting when you throw that spanner in the works with Cooper Duff-Tyler not going in the top couple, that he ended up falling as far as he did.
Yeah, for it's funny. I don't know how many North Melbourne fans will watch this mock draft, but that would probably be one of the happier groups to come out of it, given how that's unfolded. But yeah, we'll have, as I mentioned, our third mock draft coming the week before, or the days before the draft on November 20. But between now and then, next week, a more extensive club by club focus. And then after that, we'll have our November power rankings, and then there's the mock draft, and then it's the AFL draft, where after the draft we'll have the finger on the pulse. Night 1 and night 2, breakdowns, previews, plenty of profiles already coming through on Zero Hanger's YouTube channel. So if you want to go watch or read up on your favorite prospect, you can do so on Zero Hanger's YouTube or on zerohanger.com. And we'll have content interviews, as I mentioned, Sullivan Roby as well, exclusive for Craft of the Draft incoming too on our YouTube channel on Zero Hanger. So stay tuned. Hope you enjoyed the mock draft. Leave some comments and questions with how you thought it unfolded. Can't wait to hear what the fans think, because that's why we do this. That's why we want to. That's why we. Like I said, that's why we do this. So we'll catch you next time. And you can always head over to Craft of the Draft on Instagram, Zero Hanger's YouTube channel, and zerohanger.com for all the latest draft content.